Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 3/7/2022, and today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 74. And today I am 60% complete through the Intermediate HTML and CSS section, and I am working on, went through the positioning, CSS functions, and custom properties learning modules, and so we're getting close to the project. Couple more, and so let's just get right into it. So we're starting off with positioning. It says, by now you've had quite a bit of practice moving elements around the screen using things like margin, padding, and flexbox. These techniques all have relied on CSS's default positioning mode. This default positioning mode is intuitive, and you'll continue using it for almost all of your layout needs. However, there are other methods at your disposal that you can use that can be very useful in some situations. The learning outcomes. You'll learn how to use absolute positioning, fixed positioning, sticky positioning, and knowing the difference between each of them. So I think the other format we're going to do is just go down and we're going to review over the assignments, and then we'll do the knowledge check. So that seems to flow better than the way I used to do it. I may just start doing this from now on, but we'll see. So today, I didn't say it yet, but today is a similar theme to the last couple videos. It's just a presentation and verbal discussion here over the three topics. There are no exercises to run in these, so please take your time and read everything. Start off with this video. He does talk fast. He talks really fast, so you can slow him down a little bit. Maybe use a shorter speed on your playback. But excuse me. It's a very good video that goes over representing the different position behaviors. And so we have this MDM article here, and I'm not going to go through it, but I am just going to showcase the top part because it talks about the different positions and how they act. So here's a static position. This is by default what the browser is set up for. You don't have to annotate that or delineate that anywhere. It's just going to be there. So that's default. And then you have position relative. So when I click that, you see the yellow box went down. So what relative does, I'm going to not do a very good job explaining this, so make sure that you don't just take my word for it. Read the sections and the articles and all this, because I'm just going to do a real cursory brief highlight. And like I said, I may be wrong, so this stuff's new to me. So, but anyway, the relative position is going to shift it to the top and the left, or whatever attributes you use, and it's going to shift it related to where it was in the original form, if that makes sense. And when you scroll, it will scroll off the page. It sits on top of everything else, and it can affect the flow of your page because it will obfuscate anything underneath it. So keep that in mind. Then you have absolute, which what it does is it actually breaks outside of the flow of, so relative, if I remember right, relative maintains flow because the page does know where it's at. It does know it's sitting here, even though it looks all funky. When you use an absolute, it actually breaks the flow of the of that element, so that basically the page and the other elements in the HTML no longer know what this is, and it doesn't track it. It's not a child of anything. It's just kind of sitting there. And so that's why the space also is consumed up, because basically the browser forgot about it. Well, the browser still sees it, but the HTML forgot about it, so it sewed that up like it never existed, and it shifted it up because we gave it a 40 pixel top and 40 pixel left. So that's a key thing to remember there with that one. So it behaves similar to relative, but it's out of flow in absolute. And then you have sticky, which is kind of cool. So what sticky does is it runs it down with the browser and the viewport, and so that's why it's easier to remember, because it's sticky, meaning it stays on the screen. Again, it's going to obfuscate anything underneath it, and so there's inherent issues with this in its own. But just to show you the behavior of it, I like this article because it just shows you a little bit of that behavior. And I don't remember if it breaks flow and is forgotten or not, like it is with absolute. I don't remember. Maybe we'll cover that. But anyway, please read all this so that you have a firm understanding of everything. And then there's this CSS tricks page. It gives you a different insight. It's the same stuff. It's just worded a little bit differently. Give you a little bit of different examples. Okay, so here we go. So absolute is removed from the flow, just like I had said. And sticky is basically a mix between fixed and absolute, but it doesn't say. This one doesn't say if it's out of flow. I think it's in flow, which means that it still has a child-parent relationship. It knows where it's at. It knows what it is. I believe. Don't quote me on that though. And then the couple knowledge checks at the bottom here. What's the difference between static and relative positioning? So static is fairly simple. Static is the default position of every element, and like we said, that's kind of the default. That's where everything starts out at. If you don't put any position value and don't use that attribute in your CSS, it will be static. And the default of every element and properties of top, right, bottom, and left do not affect the position of the element. Relative, on the other hand, is pretty much the same as static, but properties of top, right, left, bottom displace the element relative to its normal position in the flow of the document. So basically, the main difference is when you switch it over to relative, you now have access to these 4 attributes to shift the element around on the page as you see fit. What is the absolute positioning useful for? So it allows you to position something at an exact point on the screen without disturbing the other elements around it. More specifically, using absolute position on an element will remove that element from the normal document flow, just like we were talking about a moment ago. So that's important to remember, while being positioned relative to an ancestor element. To put it in simple terms, elements that are removed from the normal flow of the document won't affect other elements and are also not affected by other elements. And some examples of where you might want to apply this is modals, image with a caption on it, and icons on top of other elements. And there's examples that they have in the text that go over that as well, that I just don't have time to go over for brevity of this video. Third one is, what is the difference between fixed and sticky positioning? So fixed generally means fixed to the viewport, which means, so if you have a box like right here, fixed means it's going to stay there, and it's not going to follow you when you scroll down off the screen. So here's the code pen. So this is a good example of the behavior difference. So yeah, so fixed. Actually, I had that wrong. So fixed will the opposite. Fixed will stay on that exact pixel you placed it at forever for the rest of the page. Whereas sticky, as you see, it maintains. You see they start out in the same exact position, but sticky will follow you up until its parent container. That's important to know. So in this example, the parent container is ending right here, so sticky will then drop off the screen. So because I originally thought the sticky was like a header, and and it is in its sorts, but it's not like a full-blown, you can't use it like a full header unless you have one div, basically one parent div that spans the entire page, which isn't likely, especially when you think of like our example project that I did for the landing page. We had what, at least four, maybe five different wrappers, which were different div zones, so to speak. So sticky would just behave like this. It would go to the bottom and it would just leave. It wouldn't bring that all the way down. So just some things to keep in mind with that. There's more to it than that, but I really don't have time to go over that. So please read everything. The next lesson is talking about CSS functions. We briefly touched on this a video or two ago when I mentioned that was interesting that like RGB, when you put that in your CSS, that's actually a function for CSS. And then these would be your arguments. There's 0, 0, 0, or whatever you put in here as your arguments. So it's kind of cool to think of it like that. So it's kind of familiar in the aspect when you're kind of thinking of it as like functions in JavaScript. So they're highlighting four main functions: is calculate, min, max, and clamp, and they all kind of are what they sound like. So we'll go through them here in the knowledge check here. So what are the four CSS math functions we covered above? So calc, min, max, and clamp. I'll briefly go over how do we use CSS math function. Okay. So the question is, how do we use CSS math functions in our CSS? So they go into some examples here. You can nest. You just use calc just like this. You could use calc and disregard right now the header and footer information, but you can use calc and then whatever it is you want to evaluate, and then you actually can store like this. You can nest a calc inside a calc inside a calc. That's pretty cool. Obviously, the more complex is the more you put in there, but you can nest if you want, and that's how you use it. So the knowledge checks don't really go over how they work. So calc is just what it sounds like. Calculating two different things, two different values to apply to that value. So your max is it's giving a list of sizes. Max will select the largest that will possibly fit within the viewing window. So max will basically look at 100 pixels, 1 rem, 4M, and 50%, and whatever is the biggest that will fit inside your viewport is what will be set as max. And then min, on the other hand, says for this example, for every 150 pixels, I want to increase the min by 100%. So that helps with responsiveness. So okay, so here's what it says: if there's 150 pixels available in the image, it will take up all 150 pixels. That's what the 100% means. So I may have said that wrong a moment ago. So when it reaches 150 pixels, the image will take up all the space. If there's less than 150, the image will switch to 100% of appearance width. So that's kind of important to remember about the min. You're able to do basic math inside of min as well. So this one, the min is going to take on 80 CHS or CH, and then 100 VW minus 2 rem is some basic math inside there. Not a calculation. That's different. It's not calc. It's just a basic math to get that min. And so that's essentially how the min works. So at 150 pixels, it's going to say, hey, I'm going to be at 100%, and for every 150 pixels, I'm going to grow by 100%. If I'm less than 150 pixels, I am going to just fill up whatever available space there is. And clamp is one I wasn't familiar with. I had never seen it before. This one's interesting. So basically, it takes three values, so it's comma separated, and it's fluid, meaning the first value is your smallest value, the 2 is the ideal value, and your last value is the largest value. And excuse me. And clamp will take any value of those 3 that fits the page the best. So that's kind of cool. So from this list of given sizes, that's max. So yeah, so basically it's just a way of you giving the clamp property 3 different options for sizing, and the page will be responsive to mobile devices, to tablets, to full-size desktop apps, and it will take whatever is most appropriate that'll fit the whole screen. And it will also clamp will change the font size in this example, like if you're zooming in or zooming out too. And the assignment here is take a look at the complete list. I won't click that, but it's all CSS functions and how they are used. It's more of a reference guide. Again, guys, don't lose your minds over all this. It's a lot of material, but take it not with a grain of salt. It's not the right word, but just reference it and remember where it's at and bookmark if necessary. That way you can come back to it. You're likely going to Google all this anyway as you come across it in your projects. So that's the common theme we keep seeing with the top exercises here, at least in the CSS section, is that there's just so much stuff. So don't stress out. Do read it and understand it, but don't sit there and try to memorize it. And last one, how can CSS functions help make websites applications more responsive? And we already kind of went over that, basically using a variety of calc, min, max, and clamp to make things more responsive. Basically all 4 of these allow that responsiveness and flexibility, and that's learned about throughout the lesson. And the last lesson is custom properties, and this one's new. We have seen the syntax before, but we've not covered it. This is the first time it's actually officially being covered, and this is kind of what it looks like. So you have var, and var is the keyword, or not keyword. Var is I guess you could call it a function. Excuse me. And it takes the attribute of color dash error dash text, and essentially that is a variable. Make sure you put dashes in, and it talks about this in the text, but make sure you put dashes inside here and don't just do empty spaces, because it will error out, because CSS does not accept spaces so as a name, so it'll think you're wanting an attribute for color and then another attribute for error and another for text. So if you do it like this, then it's all one variable, and it'll understand that you're looking for. And don't forget double dash in the front, because that's telling CSS that, hey, I'm a variable, go somewhere else to find me. It essentially is what it is. And then fallbacks are we talk about fallbacks here. You'd use a comma for your variable, and then black, comma, space, black. This would be your fallback value. This would be a proper way to do that. So basically, if this came up as undefined for some reason, whether it wasn't read in or there was an error, CSS is intelligent enough that it would skip this and apply black to the background color in this example. And then, so here's how you're declaring. It's pretty simple, guys. So here's how you're declaring your your dash dash color dash text is white here, and you're referencing it here. And keep in mind scope. Scope does matter. So your color text, this particular variable, as we'll call it for lack of a better term, this attribute of CSS is only available excuse me, is only available within the scope of fallback. So if you are in a parent that fallback falls under, for example, color dash text will not be available. So it will give you an undefined or invalid message, and it will go to your fallback because if you have one. There's a whole different thing in here. It talks about if you don't have a fallback, but the best practice is always include a fallback. But anyway, this is only scoped in, it's kind of like JavaScript as far as the scope concept, but it's a little bit different in the fact that you can't access color dash text. I keep wanting to say color dot. You can't access color dash text out in a sibling either. So fallback is a sibling to, fall in. It won't have access to this. It's only a descendant child-parent relationship. So, did I say that wrong? Make sure I said that right. Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yep. I'm not in scope, so I'm not cool. Yeah. So this is a sibling to div cool, but your variable is only available inside of the both at div cool and the child relation. So all the children inside div cool or cool div, excuse me, would be applied. So something to keep in mind there. That scope again, I didn't do that total justice. So take your time with it, read through, make sure you understand it. They talk about media queries, which you didn't even get to. This video is already 21 minutes, so just like last one, I'm going to skip the knowledge check because I don't want this to go any longer. But there's all kinds of important things to know here. Color schemes. You can talking about how to coordinate and implement a dark theme mode. Media queries to get that done as well. Using custom properties to do that theme. It's pretty complex. It probably would take a video all on its own just to understand it and describe it correctly. So I won't do it justice in this video as far as rushing it. So, yeah, that's going to be all I'm going to cover today. 60% complete through custom properties. And please like, share, and subscribe for more content. And let me know in the comments how you guys are coming along with the CSS portion here so far. And thank you for coming along the journey with me today. And with all that said, till next time, see ya.